Quick! Into the portal, everyone! Hurry!
The box!
Marcy, hurry! I just need to...
Oh, look at that. I've been impaled.
Season 2 is very good. I used to have somewhat mixed feelings on it, with those feelings leaning more towards positivity. But even though I still think Season 1 is a better overall package, I came out of this rewatch really loving Season 2. When it comes to second seasons and sequels, you no longer have to worry about establishing as much, and instead can dedicate more time to expanding upon what has already been established. However, I really wish we got more of that in this season. There is definitely a lot of world building here, and I do like what we got. All these little towns are really cool and creative, but if you actually look at the continent of Amphibia, all we see in the show are Frog Valley, Utopia, the land between them, and the three temples. That's barely any of it. But let me be a bit more positive. I really like how the season shows the aftermath of Reunion. Anne's journey across the season, trying to cope with what happened between her and Sasha, is amazing. It's incredibly messy, and not a boring set linear plot, with Anne and Sasha on a steady path to healing their relationship. I especially love how the planters are worked into this. It's a very complicated situation, so I'm glad they don't just all agree to say, yes, Anne must fix this. They struggle with how to feel. All they know about Sasha is her being evil and trying to murder them, but they also deeply respect and trust Anne, who knows Sasha much better than they do. So do they just go with their own experiences, or do they believe Anne when she says there is a good person somewhere in her? But even their trust in Anne doesn't help them very much, since Anne is deeply conflicted herself, being pulled between how awful Sasha has treated her, and all those times where she felt like there was a real friendship, but now she doesn't even know if those moments of friendship were even real. So because of their lack of experience of Sasha, combined with Anne's own conflicted mind, the planters hold much more of a grudge. Sprig even more so, despite Hop Pop being the main target of Sasha and Grime. Since being older, Hop Pop is a lot more mature and more likely to see the complexities of the situation. I have a lot to say about Sasha, but my biggest issue with her doesn't really become apparent until next season. All I'll say for now is that I like what was being set up here. I think there were some really amazing things being done thematically, with how she continued to get worse and worse as Anne got better and better. I really like the last few episodes, and how they build up this tension. Sasha once again manipulates Anne to regain her trust, only to betray her all over again, completely breaking her in the process. It starts to get kind of irritating. She does show many signs of regret, especially in Battle of the Bands, where I feel it's safe to say she was genuinely sorry for how she acted at the beginning of the episode, and was having an actual good time playing the banger that is no big deal with Anne and Marcy. But that just makes all the times she does go ahead and betray her friends so much more infuriating. I don't put all the blame on her, but I want to save the rest of that for when I get to Turning Point. At least it's really funny to see the planters just rage baiting Sasha for the entirety of the dinner.
That top bit's where Anne chose us, you know, over her friendship with Sasha.
Oh, and there she is letting go of Anne's hand and plummeting to her possible death. It's a tree! You morons! A tree!
That will always be hilarious. That's one thing the show can never do wrong. It's always funny as fuck. I'm once again constantly getting a giggle out of, not the baby! I'm a tooth, that's the truth. I am the Time Lord now. If anyone needs me, I'll be in the kitchen drinking juice. I didn't want the baby carrots, Mom! Can you miss someone you never actually knew? Wait, that's not funny. Yeah, Hopping Mall is pretty damn peak. Everyone loves to praise its ending, and rightfully so. It's a great way of confirming to the audience something we could all figure out pretty well. But the focus isn't really on the event itself. That was saved for after the rain. This is about Anne and Sprig, bringing them closer as friends by bonding over their shared desire to see their mum again.
You know, I've always wondered, can you miss someone you never actually knew?
Genuinely might be my favorite line in the show, and its impact is greatly elevated by having Anne simply pull him into a hug. She doesn't need to say anything, she simply needs to be there for her friend and let him cry his heart out. All while TJ Hill continues to break my heart with those beautiful strings and that gorgeous piano during the credits. All of that is great. But none of it would have been as impactful without the rest of the episode about the love shared between mothers and their children. That scene where Anne lets Priscilla keep the teapot is really sweet. I especially love how it doesn't take her much convincing to accept it back. If she had been super insistent on Anne winning the Derby fair and square and therefore being the one who should keep it, it would have made it seem like she didn't actually care that much about her mother's work. The only possible thing that could have made this even better is if we actually got to see Anne give her mum Pearl's butterfly. But even though that would have elevated this episode, I don't think the show not showing it to us makes this episode worse. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but it doesn't really matter because that's a discussion for season 3. Now I'm gonna do a bit of a rapid fire through a bunch of little things I want to talk about, but I couldn't find a way to naturally bring them up. Marcy is great, I love her. She's so fun and silly and autism and great and amazing, and she's Marcy fucking Wu. Anne is based for hating licorice, but I still hate her for what she said about pineapple on pizza last season. I'm so full of Transformers brain rot that when I saw the veggie monsters combine in Handy Anne, my first thought was, holy shit, that's like a combiner. Marcy is meant to be super smart, but for some reason she didn't immediately recognize that this symbol meant west. Like, girl, this is the most obvious clue imaginable. Is she stupid? Anne gave a child PTSD. Realistically, Maddie should have killed her sisters by throwing them to the ground from so high up. Frobo was a little bit unsatisfying. I don't dislike him, but for how he was set up and constantly making little appearances, I was kinda expecting more from him. A caravan named Desire basically has the same plot as the movie Muppets Most Wanted. A bunch of shows being put on in various locations that are secretly just diversions for a bunch of robberies. This show is literally all about frogs too, and a later episode just straight up has Kermit. They knew what they were doing here. I love General Yunnan, Scourge of the Sand Wars, defeater of Ragnar the Wretched, the youngest new to ever achieve the rank of General in the Great Utopian Army, and Toucher of Grass in 1 minute and 45 seconds. Hop Hop explicitly calling Anne his adoptive granddaughter is wholesome as fuck. Sprig knows how to pick a lock, which is just a little concerning. A Day at the Aquarium is a beautiful episode. And of course I have to mention Wax Museum, for both being a really fun crossover-ish episode with another show I love, but more importantly, for being the reason I even watched Amphibia to begin with. Seeing a clip of this episode is what convinced me to finally check it out. Alright, rapid fire period over. Last time I talked about the way Anne grew as a person through her influence on others, and that's felt even more this season. I already mentioned Priscilla and Pearl from Hopping Mall, but Scavenger Hunt is one of the best examples of this, as it's also used to expand upon her relationship with Marcy, and shows how well they work together. We know Anne is great at bringing out the best in people. This episode shows that pretty explicitly, but it's not simply about how Anne can easily befriend random people in Utopia, but rather how Anne's ability to connect with others, being combined with Marcy's general intelligence, is the only way they were able to succeed. Anne has seen much growth over the series, but she's still caught up in this mindset that she has to be someone she isn't. She sees how Marcy and Sasha are strong in their own ways, believing she needs to have those same exact strengths. But that's not realistic. She already has her own strengths that couldn't help her solve the puzzle, but Marcy's strength that she looks up to so much couldn't either. It's only when they work to both of their natural strengths together that they are able to succeed. So, the temples. I surprisingly don't have too much to say. I already said everything I really have to say about the third when I was talking about Sasha. The second is a great episode on its own that's kind of made worse in retrospective. Why does Valerina let Anne power up the stone if she knows what's going to happen? Is she stupid? The first temple is the only one I really have much to say about, and even then, it's more about the previous episode, After the Rain. I deeply appreciate that this arc between Anne and Hop Pop was multi-episode. They could have very easily wrapped it up in After the Rain. Hop Pop's explanation as to why he buried the box would have made for a totally fine way for Anne to reconcile with him. She already knows that Sprig and Polly lost their parents very early on, and the events described to her were obviously very traumatic for Hop Pop, so Anne naturally has no issue believing he truly did it to protect Sprig and Polly. But it doesn't matter how much Anne understands why Hop Pop did what he did, it doesn't take away from the fact that in trying to protect his biological grandkids, he still hurt his adopted grandkid. The first temple being a 22-minute episode also benefits this arc really well, since that longer runtime allows the healing process to, well, last longer and therefore be more realistic. But now, let's get to True Colors and Andreas. Oh man, I'm gonna be ranting a lot about this guy once we get to Season 3. Here's a full list of things I like about the character of King Andreas Leviathan. Number 1, his voice. Number 2, that's it. Keith David and later Zeno Robinson are great voice actors, but they can't save him from being a shit character. You're really telling me this guy just had this super evil mural just under a sheet? I was gonna ask what his plan was if someone found it, but the real question is, how has no one found it? It's not even really hidden. He also just completely ignores Frobo at first. It seems like he doesn't even notice Frobo until the ending. Why did he stab Marcy and then not grab the box from her? He just stands there for seconds and lets her drop it into the portal. Is he stupid? Was it just so the episode could have some cheap shock value that doesn't really work when it happens just minutes after 2 other fake out deaths? At least he isn't a terrible twist villain. His first scene makes it very clear that he is up to no good. Wait, I was meant to save my Andreas rant for later. Look, I know I was just really negative, but trust me when I say that I still think True Colors is an amazing episode. Especially the first half. The scene of Anne blowing up at Sasha is unbelievably satisfying. Brenda Song's line delivery is perfect. You can really feel her rage.
You're a horrible person, and I am done being friends with you.
Oh, snap.
This episode also has one of my favorite shots in the entire show. Even if this scene is just Sasha being a moron by not telling Anne about Andres immediately, god damn it, she is the most annoying character ever. And while the second half is weaker due to the issues I mentioned, I really like both the Marcy reveal and Anne's powers. Marcy's reveal works so well because of how the previous episode set it up. Of course there's Day at the Aquarium where she starts off trying to keep Anne with her, but also things like this line from the first temple.
We don't have a choice, Anne. You want to get home, right?
Notice how she says you instead of we, subtly hinting towards the fact that she doesn't want to go back to Earth. Even if I don't like how many fake out deaths are in this episode, I can accept Sprig's because it leads to Anne's power scene, which is incredible. Mostly because TJ Hill absolutely pops the fuck off with the music. And even if I hate the Marcy stab for being cheap shock value, which could have left a sour taste in my mouth after finishing the season, getting hit with the season 3 intro right after got me so hyped. This finale has many flaws, but the good definitely outweigh the bad. And now, it's time to talk about the final season of this great show. A season I have such mixed feelings on that I almost always talk about it as 2 separate seasons.